Our guest today is Jono Fries, VP of Operations for Schill Grounds Management. I met Jono before he ever entered the landscape world. He was a restaurateur. He owned a restaurant group, multi-brands, multi-restaurants, very successful. And he decided to get out of restauranting because of health problems, health concerns. And so his best friend was hiring him to help him run his landscape company, Grasscor, in Cincinnati. That company was in one of my peer groups. We interviewed Jono before he took the job. And then Grasscor got bought by Schill Grounds Management. Jono's a real character. I've known him as friends and, business colleagues for a while. So in this podcast, we really get to share some stories, which you'll hear. But the most profound things are what he learned in restauranting that he could apply in landscaping. For example, that culture can be built through systems if you do it right. That winning is a byproduct of focusing on doing things right. That obviously effective communication is so critical for building team trust, and that financial strategies should be reevaluated regularly for success. He shares what he was able to take from the restaurant industry, what he couldn't take, what he learned along the way. You're really going to learn quite a bit here. Jono is speaking at our Summer Growth Summit as well. He's giving a whole talk on gamification. He just loves building winning teams, and he loves understanding the numbers and how you use the numbers and create games with the numbers in order to get your team on board. And so he's going to give a whole talk during the Summer Growth Summit. That's August 19th to the 21st. We have an super early bird discount that goes through April 24th, but there's another early bird discount after that. But act quickly if you want to save the most. The link to that Summer Growth Summit is in our show notes. Let's jump right in. Take notes. You're going to learn quite a bit from Jono Fries. Hey, Jono, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to see you.
So, Jono, I've known you for, what did we decide, 10 years?
Yeah, something like that.
8 years?
Yeah.
Something. So,
2018. 2018.
Oh,
to be exact.
That's it? 2018.
It was August of 2018.
All right. God, that feels like 10 years ago.
Right?
So, introduce yourself for the audience, your current title, position, company, etc.
Jono Fries. I'm the VP of Operations for Schill Grounds Management. I've been in the role for about a year now, and was previously at another company called Grasscor.
Grasscor in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah. So how many employees underneath you right now, Jono?
Probably as we're ramping up, 1,700, something like that.
Does that scare you a little bit?
Not really, because I have to worry about 8 or so.
8.
Yeah.
8 direct reports.
Yeah, they have. And then they have to stress out about a lot more.
So you started off in the restaurant industry. Why don't you just tell us a bit about your pre-landscape experience?
Yeah, the previous life. So I was in business school at University of Cincinnati and working in restaurants to pay my way through. And I fell in love with what I did. I remember having some sage life advice that, I was really worried about going into that field because of, money and career and all this. And, someone just said, hey, don't worry about this. It's almost cliche. It's like, don't worry about them. Don't worry about it. Money will come. Do what you love. And I embarked on that journey. So I set a bunch of metrics along the way. Just said, every year I'm going to be here. And I kept increasing it. It was just like, if I don't hit it, I'm out. I'm going to go figure out something else. And every year I hit it. And it got to a point, I think it was 2004, I had partnered up or met a guy, David Falk, who was a great chef, and he was doing these incredible things, and started working with him. Small restaurant in just a funky part of town. And we ended up growing it and tripling revenue. We moved it. And from there, we really just started focusing on systems and growth. And we realized we were working too hard not to make money. It was a total passion project at first, and a bunch of young maniac kids. Like, we were in our 20s and, just kind of having fun and working our butts off and growing up along the way. And I think by 2007, we opened a Mexican concept. By 2009, we opened an Italian concept. And then right from there, we're off to the races with kind of multi-state expansion and we're going. So I think right around there I think we had 7 locations and like 700 people and 35 million in sales or something like that. So we're rolling, and that was pushing a little later, but and loved what I did, and just had this big kind of life-changing moment that kicked me out of the restaurants, which I don't really talk about that much, but I'll go into it. I think I told you this for the first time, I think the other day, but I was in 2016, diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I thought it was in my life's work and in the thing I was going to retire doing. And going through that whole ordeal, there's just a lot of perspective. And I remember, like, my kid barely knew me. I had 2 young kids and working nights and weekends and traveling. And, I probably gave a little too much to the restaurants.
Yeah.
And from that moment, I was like, it's time to make a change. So I was looking and, for something new. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't left the restaurants yet. And that's when this weird drive to Nashville kind of intervened and changed my life in a way.
So, and what year was that? So that was 2018?
That was 2018. Yeah. So I had treatment through 2016 and 2017, I was just kind of processing this, going, I can't continue to do it. And by 2018, I was ready to leave. Before
we get to the landscape stage.
Yeah.
So that restaurant your restaurant group got pretty dang big, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It got big. It was, there's a few things we did. We didn't know what the hell we were doing at first. So we started we knew how to do experiences. So we understood fine dining, and we really understood to care for people. We wanted to have these extraordinary experiences, and we really could pull that off. Yeah. Making money and the other part was something we were struggling with. So we started looking to some of these chain concepts. There's this chain concept called PF Chang's, which now they're kind of on the decline. But back then it was this juggernaut, and they had consistency and quality, and they were growing in sales rapidly. And we said, we got to figure out what the hell these guys are doing. So we got our hands on all their internal systems and documents, and we actually started evaluating and implementing this stuff, and realized through our expansion that culture, before, our culture was just passion and leadership. And we realized that it could be portable through a systematic approach, that we were adding accountability to these key things that we needed in place. And we used that as an inspiration, and then we just tailored it to what we needed to do. And it was a way that we found through this methodology, this systematic approach, that you created this culture that was these extraordinary experiences that people were passionate, and it wasn't just constantly casting vision and constantly trying to fire up the team. It was these metrics that were, it was creating it through this process. So that was my first taste of that, going, okay, yeah, we can really do big things, and we can continue to capture our culture if we have strong systems and process.
So your big lesson was, it's not either or, but it's both and.
Yeah. Funny thing is, it's funny you said that, because we were going to rebrand our restaurant group at one point, and we had all these ideas, and one of the names was both and. It's just funny you said that.
So can you mention the restaurants, for people in Cincinnati? And
Yeah. It is called Boca Restaurant Group, and it's Boca, which is our, the fine dining kind of flagship. That's where it all started. And then there's Soto, which is Italian trattoria, and then Nada, which is a Mexican concept we took on the road.
Okay. Do you know the guys that started the Barcelona restaurants?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
those guys are great.
Yeah, I went to I gotta think of what his name was, but right up the road from me, where he opened his very first Barcelona, he was the bartender. And
Really?
and I was there with my son, Max, who's 26. We put him on the bar, and they just didn't care. So there's my son on the bar, and he's 1 year old, and we're
and the guy, I think the guy's name was Sasha.
Sasha, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'd run into his wife started working when he opened another one. And then we would run into him at parties. And I think they built that up to like 300 million and sold it.
They did. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great concept. They had that plus Bar Taco, which was another concept. They
for sure. We went there all the time. We love that place.
Yeah.
So
good one.
Back to you. Okay. So the restaurants are still going. So you have a legacy there. Did you get, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you these questions. Did you get bought out? Did you just leave?
Oh no. Yeah. We had, I was bought out. We had some things, where I had to submit some shares. We had part of it that we were rolling out that it wasn't really worth anything, but the core purpose, there was an exit there.
Yeah.
And my partner was really gracious. It was a tough thing. We had grown up together doing it. And it's weird when you spend, that many years together building something. And one day I'm just like, I gotta go. This is not healthy for me.
Yeah.
So it was a tough thing, but he was great about it. So
are you saying that restaurants harder than landscaping?
That's a tough one. I said restaurants were the hardest business on the planet until I got into landscaping. So I think they're equally difficult.
And so you reminded me that I met you when you were interviewing for your job as, let's call it COO of a smaller landscape company, Alex's company. He was in my peer group, and
that's the Nashville Drive, the infamous Nashville Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that story. So Alex always had, Alex of Grasscor, he was the owner of Grasscor. He had some other business interests as well. So that Grasscor was, at the time, I think someone stalled out. He wasn't really invested in the business. And he was I'm telling him I'm going to Nashville, check on a restaurant. And he was going to Nashville for this, he said, a conference. And he asked to share a vehicle. And he always had these nice cars. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you could drive me to Nashville, driving your enormous Mercedes or whatever you got. As we're driving to Nashville, and he's an old friend of mine, I'm letting him in on, hey, I think I'm going to leave the restaurants. I got to figure out what's next. I don't know what's going on. I think by the end of the trip, we had a handshake deal of how this thing was going to work. But I remember him going, I'm too close to this thing. I need you to just actually have an interview with this guy. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's when I met you. I sat down, we're in the lobby of a hotel or something. You actually interviewed me for my position, which is hilarious, but thanks for giving me the go ahead. I appreciate you passing me through.
Yeah. Listen, Alex already made up his mind. I mean, we know that. We know what I like.
Yeah.
And then
that started it.
When he introduced you to us, he's like, I stabbed him with a pencil when we were in second grade or something.
That is true. I was messing with him. I was like, if no one knows Alex, but Alex was an NFL lineman. So he's a massive dude.
Yeah.
And I was not a massive dude. And I was messing with him. And he stabbed me with a pencil. His mom made him come to my house. And he brought me I remember this toy tank as an apology. That was, second grade. And we're friends ever since. So
he just knocked you out with his fist. What did he need a pencil for?
There's a lot of things he could have done.
Yeah.
He was in second grade. He was absolutely massive too back then. So, but we were great friends ever since. And that's what made it such an interesting opportunity to be able to work with a great friend and try to do something special. So, his thing, what he pitched to me, he said, I have this thing, it's stuck. I just watch you, grow this thing. I want to grow it. It's plateaued out. I'm not really in it. I want to grow it and I want to sell it. And originally it was, I want to sell it back to my team. I want it to be an ESOP. And I mean, we can talk about it later, but as that moved along, it wasn't viable to do that. So then we kind of changed course and started looking at private equity from that. But we had set out a 4-year plan and kind of laid this whole thing out. This is what we're going to do. And how it's going to play out. And that's when, I ended up jumping into Grasscor and we, started evaluating and hitting the gas.
What did you learn from restaurants that you still apply today?
Well, I mean, I think the thing I was talking about earlier was, that system and process to have consistency, through, multiple locations, and Alex had multiple locations too. I probably didn't say that. So, that was a piece of it, understanding that culture can be built into it. So, and leading large groups of people, in restaurants, you have very similar employees and you have similar structure. You have sales and marketing and it's a certain personality there. And then you have, your kitchen, which is, your ops guys. It's funny, the same struggles, same tension, same everything. And so, you learn how to lead in those pressure cookers, and the landscape and restaurant really similar. I think one thing that was interesting that, that I figured out along the way was like, so restaurants, part of our ethos was this thing called BPA, and it was blowing people away. And we just our whole thing was going above and beyond the guest's expectation to a level that you couldn't even fathom. And it was just like, no matter what, you're going to do whatever it takes to make this visit special and memorable. And for our people, they're involved in, birthdays and anniversaries and these really special moments with folks, and you're attached to it. So there's an energy around it. It's inspiring. And if you're casting that vision, you're finding the right people, they're fired up to do it. So that became this cultural element that didn't so much translate in the landscape. And it's because you're out mowing grass, you're doing all these things, you're not interfacing with people in that type of way. Now you are in some points, but it's not the same. It doesn't land the same. It's a different leadership approach. Mm-hmm. So, there was two types. It's like, we have to have all these systems and, that we're keeping everything consistent and tight, but you also want to have this vision cast in a way that everyone knows where we're going. So, and the rest, the leadership piece is like, we're trying to get a group of people from one place to another, right? And you want them to enjoy the journey along the way. And in restaurants, there's one way, and in landscape, that's where we started gamifying and stuff. We realized that these guys are competitive and they take pride in what they do. And that was a different way to get people fired up and bought in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we want to do it, and we want to give them, a roadmap to make that easy. And that's where we get into the real systematic approach of stuff. And so that was part of a realization around Grasscor, when getting in and kind of casting vision and understanding the team and, going, okay, some of these things just don't hit the way they used to. And let's make an adjustment.
What was your role versus Alex's role at Grasscor? And how big was it when you joined?
I think we were a couple million in sales. And this is a point of contention for Alex and I, which is funny. He blows it up. He's like, no, we weren't that small, but we were, 2-3 million in sales.
No. You guys were greater than that.
I don't think so. I'm thinking about like that last year when we joined, maybe 4 max. All right, let's say 4.
All right.
And
I'm going to say 5, but we'll go with 4.
Yeah. See, Alex will agree with you now. So, Alex was basically the CFO and I was the CEO. We kind of like shared the CEO, like strategic duties, and so we basically kind of carved off these two things. And, Alex is great at it. He really balanced me well too, because I can get overly passionate and wound up, and he's very calm and collected. So we worked well together in that way. But yeah, it was a good start.
I wonder how many NFL players retired and became CFOs of landscape companies.
Maybe 2. I know 1.
Yeah, exactly.
So we started at 4 or something. I think when we sold, we were right around 12 million. To understand. Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise for you besides what you just described about blowing people away? And so besides that, what was your next biggest surprise in landscaping where you had to adjust?
I guess a good question. I think it was some of it was adjusting to the different workforce, and that was on a leadership point, but it was also like how we take care of our teams. So, in Cincinnati, our team was mostly Hispanic. So right away, I'm realizing like no one can talk to our teams. And for me, I'm a big communicator. I love talking to every person on the team. One of the first things I did when I was at Grasscor was, I was just sat out in the shop and I talked to all the field guys. as much as I could. Right. And that's the, the old statement of like, you want to know what's happening in the ward, talk to the privates, not the generals. And so as, the first part of that of evaluating what's going on is just talking to the team. And we realized there's a big communication gap here, especially between the leadership, where the team was not trusting. And a lot of it was just not, they weren't freely communicating their issues. And so right away we set out to hire a recruiter / HR person who was bilingual. Said, all right, well, we gotta fix this right now. And so that was one of the biggest changes, and then instead of, I learned, luckily I had some Mexican food background. So I'm growing out Mexican cuisine and in the back of the shop and having fun with the guys that way. But it was definitely an adjustment of what the different types of workforce.
Okay. And so what was one or two things that work well in both restaurant and landscape?
Well, I think it's all the kind of not standard, but the classic business that you put everywhere. It gets back to like, you have to develop your business in a way, in a model that works. So like a restaurant, at every stage of a restaurant, you're going to reevaluate that model with your budgets and everything and look at your structures and look at, what do I need to be successful here? I got to plan this out. And you have to make those real-time adjustments and not just think that this model that you set up is going to work. You constantly have to be reevaluating. And that was the same thing with landscaping. They had something that wasn't working at the time and we had to restructure it. We had to reevaluate it, scrap it, and kind of rebuild it. And those things they're commonalities of, you got to keep teasing it and tweaking your business until you get a model that's throwing the right amount of money in down to the bottom line. And their model was like, landscape model was, they're doing high volume and low margin. And, for what they were doing. Right. And we had to reevaluate that and say, this isn't going to work. If anything, we'll scale back volume a little bit right now. We're going to do margin increase. And we'll shrink down the team if we have to. And that's what we did. And, we my evaluation was like the toilet bowl. It's like you're basically you're dropping prices to increase your volume, but then you're dropping your quality too. So, and then you get into this like swirling down where you keep doing it because your customers aren't necessarily satisfied with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we instantly said, well, all right, we're stopping this right away. We're going to go out and we're going to deliver the best product we possibly can at the best price, not the lowest price, but the best price. And we're going to have to do it at a loss for the first year because, who's going to believe us that this is who we are now? And so we made those changes. And from that, it took a year for not only our customers to believe us and new customers in the industry to believe us, for our employees to believe us too. And by year 2, it really felt like something had clicked. That's where you go in a little overly confident of like, oh yeah, we'll get this turned around. No, it was like year 2. I'm like, I think I remember the first year when Alex, we're like looking at our financials and Alex is like, I think we lost money. How are you going to grade yourself this year? I'm like, I swear, stick with it. We're going to be okay. And, from there it started turning around.
So to put 2 and 2 together, you probably knew you were going to lose money. You just didn't tell them.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, he knew too. Yeah, we were prepared for it, but it was the right thing to do. But
how's the balance sheet, Alex? Can we handle the bumps over the next year?
Yeah, it was tough. The first 2 years were tough, and then it just hit the gas. It was off to the races there, and that's where you start to realize like a full rebuild, you have to invest in it. It takes time. You have to really believe in what you're doing and you have to stay the course.
Yeah.
And anyone else who hired me as a consultant to do that. And that's why I really valued our partnership. There was enough level of trust there to stay the course.
It's and just so like we were able to do transplanting a garden, you transplant a plant the first year, it looks like it's going to die. The second year it's doing okay. And the third year is when it takes off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was some of what we went through, and it was great. I look at what I love about it is not just the financial side, and like I said earlier, it was the team side.
Yeah,
that if you took a snapshot of the team from year 1 to year 3, at year 3 it was just a group of people that loved each other. They wanted to work together. They were excited about winning together, and they believed it. They were all in, and that's what that transformation was special, and that was really fun to be a part of.
Everyone I talk to at Schill in preparation for our Summer Growth Summit uses the word winning, talks about winning, but it's not one of your value. It's not like in your value system. It's like this, at least that I've seen, but it's like this underlying value that everybody seems to breathe at Schill. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, winning is a byproduct of greatness, right? That's like, it's a byproduct of doing these 1,000 things right. So we're focusing on all the small details and doing everything the right way. And that's where profit, winning can be profit, if we want to say it that way. That's your byproduct.
Yeah.
And so, and the people we work with, I think the one you're not lucky. I think the thing that Jerry did extremely well was he really selected the right companies to partner with. So it wasn't, as we start coming together and trying to align, it wasn't these huge divides. It was a lot of good people that believed in winning in a way, that did a lot of the right things the right way.
Do you think he bought Grasscor for the company or to get you on board?
Yeah. No, I won't tell it here, but I think I had some initial meetings with them where I'm, just outspoken, and I think Alex probably apologized for me more than they wanted me.
He's like elbowing you.
Yeah, there's some funny and internal stories about Alex had a code word for me to shut up that he would say.
What, taco? Hold on, let me guess here.
Banana. It was banana.
Margaret? Okay. So,
oh man,
did you immediately think you were going to start working for Schill?
No, I had no idea. For me, it was like, it felt like almost the end of a chapter. I didn't know. One was this big life-changing moment with the restaurants. And then this next one was, is this just a pit stop along the way? I didn't know. And I felt very blessed to have the opportunity. And to me, it was a little saddening. It was like, oh, this is coming to an end. At the end of the earnout, I'm going to find the next thing. What is the next thing I'm going to do that it might not be landscaping? But I can tell you, I grew extremely fond of the industry as we went and gained a lot of knowledge. I mean, one of the interesting parts, and I got to give you credit, I was in your peer group, as you know, and being in your peer group, I wouldn't be able to do what I did if it wasn't for being in the peer group, because I was able to sit with a lot of different companies who were humbly giving away kind of all their best stuff. And you have a guy from out of the industry that was just sitting there stealing everything I could. It's just like, what is all the best things? And I basically go back and implement anything that I thought was a good process, or tailor it to what we needed to do. And so that really helped me get a foothold in the industry as quick as I did. And so I give you a lot of props for that one. But in there, I definitely fell in love with the business along the way. So Jerry tapped me right after our purchase and we're getting integrated, said, hey, you want to take on a larger role? And it was like, yeah, I think, I really enjoyed Jerry. Like when I first met him, I think, actually I should put this in, which is interesting. We were about to sell to another company. So we initially weren't going to sell to Schill. And we had another private equity firm we were talking to. And there was something about Jerry, we switched because we're like, you know what? This guy is an operator CEO. He gets us. And there was a humility about him and honesty about him that we really liked. And I tell him all the time, he was a great listener. There's a lot of CEOs you meet that are kind of wait for you to stop talking and they're not going to listen to you so they can start. And he just wasn't that guy. So we realized that he's really invested in the companies he's purchasing. And through that, we changed course and went with Schill. And it was actually a less lucrative deal than the one we had on the table. We knew it was the right one for our people. And, our people are now, and a lot of them are in different management positions. They've seen a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity. So we hands down made the right decision.
What was the first role you took on at Schill? Is it where you are now or something else?
That was something else. So, we were purchasing in the Cincinnati region, and Cincinnati had three other purchases that were already there. And so you had three companies that were working together, but not fully together. They weren't fully integrated. And once you slammed us in there, the whole thing was going haywire because you just had a whole nother company. All these people that were competing against each other are now like, all right, hey, remember when all you did is talk smack about that guy? Well, now you guys are friends and work together, which, there were some hurdles to overcome. And luckily it was just a lot of great people. So in that, I got tapped, said, hey, take on this regional role and let's figure out how to get all these companies together. So that was the first major project. And, in that we started evaluating, our struggles, as all these individual companies, and we needed to find a common kind of operating system. So in that was the first thing I said. I was like, we all have to be kind of playing from the same sheet of music. And so we just started evaluating, what is everyone doing right? The commonalities, what are the problems that are kind of systemic through the organizations, through all of them? And then we developed an operating system that worked. And we pressure tested in Cincinnati, and it really started clicking, and really helping us all work together. And right around that time, we started pulling logos off the trucks and slapping on Schill logos and really putting the companies all together. And by the end, we were really just, kind of rolling. We're seeing growth, and customer satisfaction go up. And so, it felt like a win. So after that pressure test, that's when, we kind of took that model and started rolling it out to the rest of the company.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
No, it was like, and that's when I kind of ended up in a different role from there. But I spent about a year in that regional role, and that was my big kind of task, was aligning the region and integrating all these companies together.
Oh, and then he said, hey, what you did there, I need you to do it over here.
Yeah. I think it was, let's roll this out elsewhere. And one really cool story is, like, you think of like Schill Cleveland, which is like ground zero of the company.
Yeah.
They started adopting this process that was built in Cincinnati. So you imagine the humility of these guys who built the company. They've been doing it a certain way for 30 years. And some guy that, hey, that new guy is going to tell you what you're doing, you need to do it differently. And they totally adopted it and they embraced it. And they have, seen a lot of benefits from it. So I think that shows like the power of this company, that it is, everyone's open-minded and it's just about growth and doing things better. Like, what is the best way? And, in this system, we're constantly, as we're buying companies, we're evaluating, is there something they're doing better than what we're doing? And everything is always up for, like, debate. How can we make this better every day?
Mm-hmm.
So in that, it's like, as we continue to partner with more companies, we're getting more and more knowledge of what is the best way to do things. And we're integrating it into what we do.
Yeah. I am so excited to come see you guys and hear your presentations in August. You mentioned the comment about gamification that really helped. That was the difference that landscaping needed, and you're going to give a whole talk on that. So I'm excited to hear that.
Yep.
And then you mentioned operating system, and I know we're going to see that in a few different presentations. So the Schill operating system, which stands for SOS, by the way.
We've never branded it yet, but yeah. You just branded it SOS.
Yeah. I was doodling that. I'm like, is it a positive or a negative? SOS.
Yeah. And we're giving it all away. I mean, I think that's the key of what has made us successful. It is a combination of everyone giving best practices away to us. So we want to give it away to everyone else. I mean, that's, like I said, the reason I'm sitting and talking to you is because a bunch of companies with a level of humility were giving away all their best practices in a rapid time in your peer group. That started me off. And I think this industry, it only makes us better.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Fire hose. So lastly, what are you most excited about bragging, sharing, besides what we just said? Is there something else you can leave the listener with that you're excited to show off or share when we come?
Oh, man. Oh, for when you guys get there, is there other things?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's more just, I want to brag on our team. I think you're going to see this combination of just some exceptional folks. And, if I'd be most proud of anything, it is the team. We have these guys like the regional manager group that you'll meet all them that report to me. are exceptional. They're the ones who really make the company work, and they are the best out there. I mean, it is nuts. I get on a call every week with everybody, and I'm just like, I'm looking at my screen of all the folks, and I'm just like, these guys are absolute badasses. And they are. And so, that would be the thing. And everyone underneath them because of that too. It's such a good team that I hope your folks all get some good FaceTime with them and get to hear their stories.
I am so excited. Are you going to throw on your chef hat and grill us some food while we're there?
I don't know. It's funny. I cooked for a few people recently because no one knows me as a chef in this organization. So like recently, some of the folks I work with are buddies. I've started cooking and throwing down a little bit every once in a while. So no, I haven't even cooked for everyone yet.
I've had 2 peer groups to my house in the past couple months, and we get it catered, but I definitely bring out some steaks and I smoke steaks for everybody.
Oh, nice.
There's nothing better than cooking for people you love.
I did it for Grasscor. It's so big now, it's hard to do, but for Grasscor, every snow event, it would be like 3 a.m. and I'd be making chorizo egg burritos. And I had this cooler in my truck and I just drove around just like handing burritos out the window to people. Like I'd go get them on sites and just hand them burritos. And it was just something I love to do. And it's funny you say that, like that's what got me into restaurants was, I could show love to your cooking. It was a passion point to me and it's still there. I love cooking for folks.
Awesome, man. Jono, we're going to see you soon. Thank you for sharing.
Yep. Great talking to you, man.